So when my kids were young, they asked the question. It's okay, not anything that will embarrass you. So I would have asked you if it did. So when my kids were young, they asked me, do you love me? And that do you love me is really, do you love me? They wanted to know if I loved them. And the answer was simple, yes, I do love you. When they became teenagers, that was a different story, right? So I found that do you love me is another way of saying, can we order pizza? Or can you buy me Xbox? When they got a little older, it was about dinner time, I prepared the meal, and then they want to find out if I love them because they want to go hang out with their friends. Or, can I take your car? And if I say no to any of these, you're for sure that I will get challenged saying, but you said you love me to the moon and back. How can that be so hard? We get always tested, right? And there are times that do you love me comes in a different way. They want to know if I love them. After spilling milk on the floor, after I just mopped it. And they look at me, do you still love me? Well, what can you say? And, some other times, I prepared this dumplings for church potluck and left it on the table. It was probably my mistake. And then hungry teenagers came and eat them all. And that was my last batch. And I have to think about what I can bring to the church potluck, right? And then, there's a question that comes along. You still love me, right? Teenager voice, right? And then there are the times when they're hurting. Whether that is either a bad grade or a bad game, they didn't get into the team that they wanted. They're hurting inside. They're facing the failure. They're facing the vulnerability. And they ask me, do you love me? As if at that moment, my love matters to them. As if my love is important for them. They ask me, do you love me? And with all my sincerity, from the bottom of my heart, I say, yes, I do love you. Nothing can take away my love. Do you love me? Jesus asked to Peter. And I was thinking, shouldn't Peter ask this question to Jesus? After all the things that he's done? Like denial for 3 times that I don't know that man, God. And disappearing from the scene of Jesus' trial and the sight at the cross, and still not believing Jesus' words of resurrection. Shouldn't Peter be the one who asked Jesus, do you still love me after all the things that I've done? But it seems like Jesus always, always does that first. He always asks us first, do you love me? As if our love matters to him. As if our love is important for him. And probably it was. You know, this was the last time, right? Personal encounter, private encounter with Peter. For Jesus, before he ascended to heaven, this was the last chance to tell him what is the most important lesson and essential, and what's the most important keyword for the rest of Peter's life, because Jesus won't be there to lead him and guide him. I was thinking about my last time speaking to my children. If I know that this is my last chance to talk to my children, what would I say? I would say something very, very important. I will come down deep and say something that I don't want them to lose for the rest of their life. And Jesus' word was love. Do you love me? Do you love me? He asked this because this love was important for him. It mattered for Jesus that Peter loves him, because that love is the intent and motive and prerequisite of the action that Peter will do. That is the foundation. Out of that love, Jesus asked, feed my lambs, tend my sheep, and feed my sheep. 3 times. Very important message. And I don't know if Peter got it. I don't really know he got it immediately. But I do know that he got it gradually, little by little. I'm sure as he reflected on what Jesus said, feed my lambs, tend my sheep, he probably thought about what was the image of sheep and lambs in Jesus' lessons. Jesus used the image of sheep and lamb many, many times. Out of many, there was one particular time that Jesus was looking at the people, the crowd gathered in front of him, and still coming from the back. He saw these people, and he was totally moved by compassion and love. He said, they are like the sheep without the shepherd. He was touched and moved by the love and compassion for these people, and described that they are the sheep without the shepherd. And the sheep, the image of sheep, according to Jesus, was those, the innocent people of God, but who can easily get lost, who can easily taken advantage of, who can easily mistreated. That's why they need a shepherd to lead them the way to the way of God, to the way of spirit. So Jesus got that message. Feed my lambs and tend my sheep, the 2 most important qualities and skills of the shepherd. So this was the moment that Jesus was handing over his shepherd's staff to Peter. This was the moment the apprentice becomes the master. This is the moment that Jesus is giving his mission and ministry to Peter. And he wanted to make sure Peter does all these things out of love. Out of love. He probably remembered all the things that Jesus did to feed people, right? Out of 5 loaves and 2 bread, Jesus multiplied it and fed 5,000 people. There was a power. And then Jesus said that I am the bread of life from heaven to feed the hungry. I am the living water to quench the thirsty. And on the very night that they were together to celebrate Passover meal, Jesus said that I am the body that is broken so that others can have life abundantly. All these images came to Jesus and recognized that it is he who needs to represent Jesus in this world. It is he who is the body that is broken to feed the people in the world, to quench the thirsty. It is I that Jesus entrusted to do this work for the rest of my life. And it is that same love that I stand before you. And I'm sure it is the same love that you're coming today and here today with. Ever since I was appointed to Church on the Cape, I've been praying for the church and for the preparation of this very day and our journey together. And every time I prayed, there was a strangely warming heart of love that filled my heart. There was this love and compassion that comes to me, not only during my prayer, but also in my life. Since January to this day, God filled my heart with love. And I knew that this heart of love is to prepare me to walk into this congregation to offer the love. I come to love in the name of Jesus. And I come to be loved by you in the name of Jesus. And I know this love may not be always enough. You know, love is a strange thing. If you ever loved someone truly, it also hurts, right? You know, sometimes it hurts. You have to risk the pain and suffering and vulnerability. And that cross is, you know, the example of that love, right? With all good intention to love others, love people, and save people, Jesus had to walk to the cross, right? Things may not be always well. Things may not be always looking good. And things may not always go to the right direction. We don't go with them, right? But that doesn't stop me from loving you or being hopeful for our ministry together. Because I believe in the wisdom of Paul when he said in the Romans, everything will work together for good, for those who love God, for those who are called for God's purpose. And I believe in the wisdom of John Lennon too, when he said, let me think, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. So we come together in response of Jesus' question, do you love me? And we're the ones who answered, yes, we do. And Jesus wants us to turn our love for him into action. Because love has to be our motive, intent of our everything we do in here. And if we may fail, that's okay, because Jesus will always come to us at the end of the day, ask exactly the same question. If our answer is yes, we do love you, I do love you, then he will pick us up, and then we can go from there. So brothers and sisters, beloved brothers and sisters of God, do you love Jesus? Yes? Yes. And I look forward to the opportunities to work with you, to tend his sheep and feed his lambs. Amen.